First time I lied to my followers, I told myself it was harmless, but that single post was the seed of everything that destroyed me. I stare into the lens, watching the reflection of a stranger wearing my smile. Emily said, "Your fans adore you." I nodded, though my chest felt hollow. The ring light washed away the shadows, leaving nothing of me, only the mask I wore. I thought, if I keep this up, they'll love me forever. But the truth was venom in my throat, burning each time I spoke. My father's words echoed, "This isn't who you are." I dismissed them, yet deep down, I feared he was right. Every like was a chain, every comment a blade. My empire was built on filters, my heart buried in silence. I whispered, if they knew the real me, they'd vanish. And maybe that's why my family already has. Emily Watson said, "They love you." I laughed, hollow and sharp, as if love could be measured in numbers on a glowing screen. The followers weren't cheering for me. They were applauding a ghost I stitched together from every insecurity I buried. I remembered sneaking past my mother's disapproving eyes, hearing her mutter, "She's lost herself." I thought being adored meant I was real, but the adoration was never mine. Each filter became a mask, each caption a lie. The crowd demanded perfection, and I gave it to them, even when it meant suffocating in silence. In the quiet after every post, I could hear my own heartbeat screaming, begging to be free. Yet, I chose the silence, over and over, because silence kept the empire alive. Robert Carter's voice cut through the glow of my perfect world. He said, "You're not yourself anymore." I wanted to scream that this version was better, shinier, adored. But deep down, I knew he wasn't wrong. Behind every post was a hunger I couldn't quiet. I wanted more likes, more validation, more proof that I mattered. Each upload was another pact with a devil I created. My followers clapped, while my family turned away, each applause pulling me farther from the girl I once was. I whispered to myself, maybe this is who I am now, but the whisper carried no conviction. Emily Watson tried to soothe me, her voice soft. "You're doing amazing." I smiled weakly, though the words rang hollow. My followers adored me, but they didn't know me. Not the trembling girl who deleted drafts until her thumbs ached. Not the one who cried when the comments turned cruel. The influencer they worshipped was untouchable, but I wasn't. I envied the persona I had built, the mask that was braver than I'd ever be. Each time Emily reached for me, I wondered if she loved the mask more than the girl. I leaned back in my chair, staring into the glow of the screen. The comments rolled in like waves, each one drowning me deeper. My chest ached from holding the mask in place. Robert's words lingered. Emily's smile tried to anchor me, but the silence between them was louder. The crowd adored me, yet my family despised what I had become. I whispered to myself, if love is this hollow, then why do I keep chasing it? The room felt smaller, the glow harsher, the mask heavier. My empire of illusions was already cracking, and I couldn't stop it. The ring light dimmed, but its ghost burned in my eyes. Emily Watson said, "Take a break, Em, you looked tired." I laughed, because tired didn't even touch the weight pressing on my chest. The comments had slowed, but the silence was worse than their noise. I craved the flood of validation, even though it drowned me each time. Robert Carter's words replayed in my head like a curse, and I hated how true they felt. The adoration wasn't mine. They didn't love me, they loved her, the polished phantom on the screen. Every time I stared into the mirror, I begged to see myself again, but she was gone. The girl who once scribbled secrets in notebooks was buried under filters and fake smiles. Emily whispered, "You're still you," but I knew better. I remembered my mother's words the night she caught me filming late. She said, "You've lost yourself." I wanted to argue, but her disappointment made the fight die in my throat. She was right. I couldn't remember the last time I lived without performing. Every moment had become content, every emotion edited, every truth filtered. I used to dream of being seen, but now I feared being known. Emily Watson tried to smile at me, her eyes searching for the girl she once called her best friend. I wanted to reach for her, but the mask kept me frozen. The more they adored me, the less I recognized myself. I thought validation would fill the emptiness, but it only carved it deeper. I checked my phone, refreshing again and again, waiting for hearts to rise. The silence in between felt unbearable. Robert Carter told me once, "Love doesn't come from strangers," and I pretended not to hear. My empire was built on the hunger of strangers, and their appetite was never satisfied. Emily Watson sat across from me, chewing her lip nervously, as though she wanted to tell me something but swallowed it back. I envied her freedom, her ability to be herself without a mask. My reflection mocked me. A girl shaped for consumption, not for love. The crowd's love was intoxicating, but it came with claws. Every like pulled me deeper into the lie. Every cruel comment cut sharper than my family's rejection. My chest grew tight, caught between two prisons, the adoration I feared losing and the truth I feared showing. Emily Watson whispered, "They don't deserve the real you if they can't love her." I almost believed her, but the screen vibrated with fresh notifications, and my heart raced. I was addicted, and addiction doesn't care about truth. I scrolled faster, my reflection blurred in the phone glass, unrecognizable. At night, the silence screamed louder than the applause ever did. I lay in bed, Emily Watson breathing quietly beside me, but my thoughts never stopped. My followers saw perfection, but I saw the cracks widening. My family hated the mask, but I feared they'd hate the girl beneath it more. Robert Carter's disappointed voice lingered. Margaret Carter's judgment cut deep, and Emily's worry suffocated me. I whispered into the dark, "Who am I if I'm not her?" But no answer came. Just the glow of my screen, still buzzing with love for a ghost I could no longer control. The silence between me and Robert Carter was heavier than any hate online. He said, "You've built a cage." His voice cracked like thunder in the quiet room. I wanted to scream that the cage was gold, adored, worshipped, but the truth twisted inside me. I kept smiling for the lens, pretending the cage was freedom. Emily Watson sat close, her hand brushing mine, her soft voice insisting, "She's fine." But I wasn't fine, and she knew it. Every post was a wire pulling tighter, and every lie another lock on the door. My phone buzzed endlessly, waves of praise tangled with venom. I stared at the numbers rising, but the emptiness only deepened. The more I gave them, the less of me there was left to keep. My family pulled further away while strangers clung to my image. I whispered, "Maybe this is who I'm meant to be," but it wasn't a promise. It was surrender. At dinner, Margaret Carter broke the silence. She said, "You've forgotten your family." Her words cut sharper than any hate comment. The fork trembled in my hand as I pushed food around my plate, trying to ignore the heat rising in my chest. Robert Carter stared at me but said nothing. His silence was heavier than anger. Emily Watson's smile faltered as she tried to soften the blow, changing the subject, but the weight of my mother's words pressed down. I thought of my fans who worshipped me, praising me as perfect, while my family saw only failure. The two worlds collided in my chest, leaving no space for me. I wanted to shout, "Why can't you love both versions of me?" But I stayed silent, because even I didn't know who I was anymore. My appetite was gone, eaten away by the mask I wore too long, leaving only the bitter taste of shame. That night, I uploaded another post, captioned with a smile I couldn't feel. The comments poured in, drowning me in worship. "You're flawless, our queen. We love you forever." But I stared blankly, numb to the flood of love. Robert Carter's voice echoed like a curse. "None of this is real." He was right, but reality was unbearable. I clung to the illusion, even as it hollowed me out. Emily Watson leaned against me, whispering, "Turn it off." Her breath was warm against my skin, but the phone was colder, and I couldn't let it go. Each like was poison, and I drank it greedily, desperate for another sip. My chest ached as if my own body wanted me to stop lying. I whispered into the glow, "If they stop loving me, who will I be?" The silence that followed answered everything. I would be nothing. The crowd adored me, but their love turned on me like a knife. One careless story, one imperfect word, and the comments shifted. Admiration curdled into suspicion. Margaret Carter's voice was sharp. "This is what happens when you build on lies." Her words seared worse than the gossip. Emily Watson whispered, "They'll forget tomorrow." But the crowd never forgot. Their hunger grew when they smelled blood. They wanted flaws, they wanted scandal, they wanted to rip me open. My pulse raced as I scrolled faster, hoping the next post would bury the hate under more praise. But the love didn't come. The feed filled with doubt, with venom, with strangers tearing apart the ghost I had built. I could feel the cage collapsing, bars bending inward until there was no air left to breathe. I told myself I could handle it, but my body betrayed me. My hands shook so hard the phone slipped. My chest burned like fire, and tears blurred the glowing screen. Robert Carter shouted from the doorway, "Turn it off before it kills you." His voice was thunder, but my fingers clung to the phone like it was oxygen. Emily Watson crouched beside me, her voice softer, pleading, "Please, Em, let it go." But I couldn't. The crowd's love was a drug, and I was an addict with no way back. My mask was cracking with every heartbeat, each breath pushing fissures wider. The noise inside me was deafening, louder than the silence of my family, louder than the whispers of truth I ignored. I whispered, "Just one more post," though I knew it was another lie. The world was watching, and I was breaking apart in their hands. The storm broke when the comments shifted from whispers to screams. Screenshots leaked, private messages twisted into weapons. I froze as my phone lit up with betrayal. Emily Watson's voice trembled. "You have to tell them the truth." My stomach dropped because the truth wasn't mine to tell. It was hers. She had been the one holding my secrets, the one I trusted most. Robert Carter shouted from the hallway. "What did you expect?" Margaret Carter muttered, "It always comes out." My empire wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. And standing in the center of the ruins was Emily Watson, her eyes full of guilt, her lips unable to form the apology I begged for. The betrayal stung deeper than the gossip. Emily Watson said, "I didn't mean for it to spread." My heart pounded, every word cutting deeper. She was my confidant, the one I trusted with the truth I couldn't share with anyone else. Now, the world had it, raw and poisoned. Robert Carter's face twisted in anger. Margaret Carter folded her arms tighter, and I felt smaller than ever. My followers demanded answers, but my family demanded honesty. The two worlds collided, crushing me in the middle. Emily reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The silence between us was heavier than her confession. The ghost I built wasn't the only lie anymore. The betrayal was real, and it had her face. The comments grew sharper, accusing, dissecting my every word, every lie. Emily Watson whispered, "I thought it would protect you if they knew." My voice cracked, "Protect me, you destroyed me." Tears blurred my screen, but I couldn't look away from the avalanche. Robert Carter slammed the table, shouting, "This is the cost of your lies." Margaret Carter shook her head, her silence more brutal than anger. The room spun with noise and silence colliding, until I couldn't tell where my voice ended and theirs began. Emily Watson sobbed, reaching again, but I was already too far gone. Betrayal had taken root, and it grew into something unstoppable. The truth twisted until even I couldn't tell what was real. My persona, my ghost, had become more believable than me. Emily Watson said, "They loved her, not you." The words seared because I already knew. My reflection in the black phone screen was unrecognizable. A stranger dressed in my skin. Robert Carter muttered, "You've lost yourself." Margaret Carter whispered, "Maybe you never knew who you were." The thought sliced deeper than the betrayal. I had built an empire of lies, but I didn't know if the girl beneath it could survive the collapse. For the first time, I wondered if Emily Watson envied the mask more than she loved me. The twist wasn't just betrayal, it was revelation. The influencer they adored wasn't me. She was a ghost stitched from filters, poses, and captions. Emily Watson confessed. I helped build her. My breath caught, realizing she wasn't just the betrayer. She was the architect beside me all along. Robert Carter stared at us with disgust. Margaret Carter's silence pressed like stone. My empire wasn't mine. It was ours. And now it was ruined. The ghost they loved wasn't me. She never was. My voice trembled. Then who am I? The answer was silence, thick and final, as the ghost hovered between us, more real than I'd ever been. Thorm finally consumed me. Notifications screamed, my name trending with words like fraud and liar. I wanted to throw the phone, but it was glued to me like a curse. Robert Carter stormed in, shouting, "This is the end." His face was red with fury, eyes wild with disappointment. Margaret Carter said nothing, but the silence was worse than rage. Emily Watson cried, "I'm sorry, I never meant," but her words drowned under the flood of comments tearing me apart. My chest tightened, breaths shallow, vision spinning. I wanted to scream louder than the world, louder than the betrayal, louder than the silence of my family. Instead, I choked on my own voice. The comments turned venomous, strangers clawing at pieces of me I didn't know I'd shown. They wrote, "We never knew her at all." And maybe they were right. I threw the phone onto the floor, the screen cracking like glass under pressure. Robert Carter shouted, "This is what you chose." Margaret Carter whispered, "She was never strong enough for this." Emily Watson tried to reach for me, but I pushed her away, rage flooding through me like fire. My empire was ashes, and I was choking in the smoke. My reflection in the broken glass looked more honest than I had in years. The mask I built shattered in public view. My followers flooded timelines with memes, edits, jokes about my downfall. Each laugh felt like a knife twisting deeper. Emily Watson begged, "We can fix this," but I couldn't hear her over the roaring in my ears. Robert Carter said, "There's nothing left to fix." His voice was final, like a coffin slamming shut. Margaret Carter's silence stretched until I thought it might kill me. I screamed finally, raw and desperate, a sound I didn't recognize as mine. My chest heaved as though I had torn the ghost from inside me. But the emptiness left behind was worse. The scandal reached its peak. My face splattered across feeds, headlines dripping with humiliation. Cancelled, exposed, fake. The words weren't just digital, they were carved into me. Emily Watson whispered, "I'll stand by you," but her voice cracked with doubt. Robert Carter barked, "Stand by her? She's already gone." Margaret Carter muttered, "She was gone long before this." I clawed at my chest, trying to tear the ghost out, but it clung tighter, whispering, reminding me that without her, I was nothing. My scream turned to sobs, my body trembling under the weight of collapse. This was the end of everything, and I couldn't breathe. The climax wasn't loud anymore. It was silence. The phone lay shattered. The comments kept pouring, but I couldn't hear them. My chest ached, my tears dried, and I felt hollow. Robert Carter's anger faded into weary silence. Margaret Carter looked at me like I was a stranger. Emily Watson sobbed, reaching again, whispering, "Please, Em." But I couldn't reach back. My empire was dead, my mask in ruins, and all that was left was me, bare, raw, unrecognizable. For the first time, I wasn't scared of the silence. I was the silence, and it was deafening. The silence after the storm was suffocating, but different. No screaming, no notifications, just the hum of emptiness. My phone lay shattered on the floor, lifeless. Robert Carter sat in the hallway, too tired to argue. Margaret Carter stared blankly, her eyes dry but heavy. Emily Watson whispered, "It's over now." I wanted to believe her, but the truth lingered like smoke after fire. My empire was gone, my mask destroyed, but I was still breathing. For the first time, I felt the weight of my body without the pull of the crowd. It was terrifying, but it was real. I walked to the mirror, half afraid of what I'd see. The ghost was gone, and staring back was a girl with messy hair, red eyes, and cracked lips. She was raw, ugly, but undeniably real. Emily Watson stood behind me whispering, "That's the you I know." Her voice cracked, but her eyes were gentle. Robert Carter muttered, "Finally." Margaret Carter said nothing, but for once, she didn't look away. I touched the mirror, hand trembling, as though meeting myself for the first time. I whispered, "I thought I wanted to be remembered. Now I just want to be real." The room smelled of dust and silence, heavy with aftermath. Emily Watson whispered, "You don't have to go back to her." I swallowed hard, my chest aching with the weight of her words. Robert Carter sighed. "It's not too late to start over." For the first time, his voice didn't sound angry, only tired. Margaret Carter finally spoke. "The mask wasn't love. Love is here if you want it." My throat tightened as I realized they weren't pushing me away anymore. The crowd's love was conditional, fleeting. But this love, broken, complicated, imperfect, was real. I picked up the broken phone, screen cracked like the life I had built. "Emily Watson," said softly, "you don't owe them anything." For once, I believed her. The ghost would never rise again. Robert Carter whispered, "Let her die." Margaret Carter added, "And let yourself live." I dropped the phone back onto the floor, hearing the sharp crack echo like a final confession. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with release. I wasn't free yet, but for the first time, freedom felt possible. I was no longer their queen, their ghost, their mask. I was just me. The night ended in silence, but it wasn't the suffocating silence of before. It was fragile, like the first breath after drowning. Emily Watson sat beside me, head resting on my shoulder. Robert Carter had finally stopped shouting, his breathing steady in the hall. Margaret Carter's stare softened, no longer sharp, but uncertain. I whispered to myself, "I'm still here." For once, the words didn't feel like a lie. The ghost was gone, the empire dead, but I was still alive. Broken, but alive. And maybe that was enough to start again. Morning crept in through the blinds, pale and unforgiving. I hadn't slept. Emily Watson stirred beside me, whispering, "It'll get better." I wanted to believe her, but the silence outside was louder than ever. The crowd had moved on. My empire, once buzzing with noise, was dead. Robert Carter walked past the doorway, his face heavy with exhaustion, no words left to give. Margaret Carter sat quietly with folded hands, eyes unreadable, as though she'd already mourned me. I stared at the broken phone on the floor, its black screen reflecting nothing but my hollow face. For the first time, I realized the end had already come. I whispered, "They don't care if I live or die." The words lingered, heavier than the silence. Emily Watson shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I care." Robert Carter muttered, "We all do, though we failed to show it." Margaret Carter sighed, her voice breaking for the first time. "I just wanted my daughter back." The words cracked me open, but the wound was too deep to heal. I looked at them all, broken pieces of a family, and wondered if I had destroyed us or if the ghost had. The mask was gone, but the emptiness remained, and no apology could fill it. The ghost whispered back to me, not in comments, not in headlines, but in my own mind. She said, "They loved me more than you." And she was right. The persona had been adored, worshipped, followed, while the real me sat here abandoned. Emily Watson gripped my shoulders, pleading, "Don't listen to it, you're still here." But my voice cracked as I replied, "They never wanted me, only her." Robert Carter closed his eyes, as though wishing this moment away. Margaret Carter whispered, "You're stronger than you think." But I didn't feel strong. I felt like glass, shattered and sharp, cutting everyone I touched. The quiet pressed harder than the noise ever had. My followers didn't cancel me, they forgot me. That was worse. Emily Watson whispered, "We'll start over, together." Her hand trembled in mine. Robert Carter said nothing, just stared with eyes that begged me to choose life. Margaret Carter finally broke, tears sliding down her cheeks as she whispered, "Please, just be you." I wanted to believe it was possible, but the silence gnawed at me. I was no longer their queen, no longer their ghost, just a forgotten girl staring into a void that offered no answers. The final confession rose like glass in my throat. I whispered, "And that's why you'll never see me online again." The words felt irreversible, like sealing a coffin. Emily Watson gasped, Don't." But it was too late. Robert Carter's face softened, relief and grief tangled in his eyes. Margaret Carter closed her hands in prayer-like silence. The room fell still, the silence absolute, the ghost gone at last. I wasn't their idol, wasn't their mask, wasn't their queen. I was only me, broken, fragile, but real. The last 10 seconds stretched forever, echoing with the truth I could never take back.